We have Sean of Retro Reminiscence. And so you've been in the game, in the YouTube game for like a year, right?
Yeah, I've had my channel for a little over a year. I just released a 1 year anniversary video actually, but I've had the account for quite a few years. I want to say around 2010. I created, I honestly just created it so I could subscribe to channels so I wouldn't have to just keep looking them up. But I never, started making content until a decade later. So
Were there any, when you first started, was there any channels that really gave you the push to start it?
yeah, like I watched a lot of I used to be real into competitive gaming around 2008, 9, and 10. So I was on game battles and I was doing a lot of Call of Duty tournaments and things like that with my clan. And I was always watching a lot of videos like that, maybe that would show spots on certain maps to help you out during your tournaments and your matches. So that's where I got my start watching it. But I was always into retro games, but I would watch that just for stuff because I was playing competitively. But I mean, I think pretty much just like everybody else, I watched a lot of classic game room and just the angry video game nerd. He's huge for everybody. Everybody pretty much watched his stuff. But there was a channels that I liked watching, but unfortunately, most of them aren't around anymore, or they just don't make content. So um, that's what I used to do on there in the early days. But nowadays, I was like, well, I figured I'll just make a channel and start doing my own content.
Now, the video we have going right now is your PlayStation collection. Was this one of your was this a system that I'm curious because so many collectors, they go through that point where they have their childhood collection, right? They purge it all, and they kind of rebuild. Was that the case with you, or like for PlayStation, for example? Tell us about that. Like, did you have any from your childhood and you're building back up, or what?
Yeah, I got a PlayStation originally when it probably a couple months after it first came out, and one of the games I played a lot was Resident Evil. That game at the time just blew my mind on how in depth it was, just everything. Like now it's kind of dated with the graphics, but everything that game had, I was so into. It was wild to have such a cool immersive story. I was into horror movies and things like that, especially being a huge fan of like renting VHSs. We rented a ton of horror movies, so it definitely appealed to me. Resident Evil did, and I was huge into Metal Gear, Silent Hill, just things like that. But I remember a game that I played a lot was a demo disc when you got the game, and it was a demo disc called Bushido Blade. The game was, and it was so weird because you could kill the person in like one swipe if you did it right. So
Right.
the little demo had like a ledge you could jump up on, and I would always just jump up on the ledge and just wait for him to climb it and just slash him right in the head. Like it was, and I just did it over and over. I would play and run around and try to, kind of get out of the map, and because I didn't have a lot of money for games, so that demo disc became like a game for me. I played everything on it. I watched the videos over and over. So it was pretty cool, but I wore that demo disc out, definitely the one that came with the original PlayStation.
And you had those magazines, right? That would always give you a demo disc. I forget some of the names of them.
Yeah, I was they had the official PlayStation magazine. So I never subscribed to that, but my aunt was married and her husband actually was huge into PlayStation. He had a little more money. He was an adult, so he would buy those. And me and my cousins, Casey and Travis, would just wear those things out, man. We would every month we were looking forward to what was on that demo disc. So it was super cool when he brought that home and we could play, a ton of different demos just to give you an idea of what's coming out and what's in the pipeline. Because I was a huge retro video game magazine. I would read a bunch of magazines all the time, like EGM and Game Pro and things like that. So I was always into the know, trying to stay up to date on just systems and games in general. So when those demo discs came out, and we got to play them. It was fantastic because I wasn't wealthy at all. So like getting a demo disc was like getting a game. We just played the hell out of it.
Right. And yeah, one of our viewers here, Eli, I'm sure one of your fans is talking about they put like 100 hours into Tony Hawk Pro Skater. What's fascinating to me too. Say you got these demo discs on these PlayStation magazines back in the day. It would be interesting, like if you got an early version of a game and they changed a lot by the time you got the release. So the demo, I'm sure that happened a lot where the demo you
Oh
played
yeah,
differs from the actual game release, right?
yeah. There's actually yes, there is, and there's some that I'm pretty sure that never came out. They were like videos that the games were actually canceled on.
Yeah.
So there was one. I know the Final Fantasy had a different. The Final Fantasy 7 had a difference in it. I'm thinking it was a dialogue change, but there was a difference in that. Man, there was just I remember there was a difference in the siphon filter demo that was on there. So there was a ton of like early footage that I guess they were just trying to pump out, and when they would make a change, they were like, "Well, it's too late. It's it's already in the magazine." So
I'm sure one of the cases too is like, say you had a game that went over budget, and like maybe you could have had like a software developer go out of business altogether, and then that game could have not been released, and like you said, all there could be was the demo disc.
yes, that's the thing. Back then, like there was a lot of people, especially during the PlayStation era, just making games for the first time. You know, they gather up some money um, because CD technology was getting a little more affordable. So they were like, well, let's just pump out a game and see what we can make on it. It's kind of wild to think about, but there was a lot of people doing that. They were companies just kind of doing real quick upstarts and releasing games. I remember a couple games on the PlayStation alone uh, that are extremely rare now, and you don't really ever hear about them, or they didn't make another game. They made like one or two games, and then the studio's just defunct.
Right. Were you a big Nintendo Power guy?
Honestly, I wasn't because I wasn't just a Nintendo fanboy.
Right.
Uh, I was lucky enough to. My uncle was actually lucky enough. He had both. He had the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. So I spent a ton of time with him, and that I was able to play both. So I was never like, one way or the other, like, oh, the Sega sucks or the Super Nintendo sucks. So Nintendo Power uh, in the NES era, yes, I did read them, but I could never buy them. I'd always just go to the store, and mom would be like, well, I'm going to shop, or my grandma would be like, I'm going to shop, and I would just sit there in the aisle before they started sealing them, and you could just open it up and try to remember as many codes as you could.
Now I got to go to the elephant in the room. We got to talk about the Wall NES here. Tell me the story. How long you been collecting? What number are you at? Is it a full set? What's the deal?
I was going for a full set. I've been collecting hardcore for about 10 years, and I'd say longer than that collecting. I was just kind of casual, picking up stuff from my childhood at first. And then I was like, well, I'll try to go for a full NES set. So I'm actually pretty close. I'm about 6 games away. I've seen them at conventions, but I think it's one of those things where I'm afraid to complete it. I don't really know what I'll do after that. And
Yeah.
I'm just going for the license set. So there's there's
Phoenician games.
yeah, the Panesian games like that's one reason I go on license, because for one, I'm just not a fan of the unlicensed. I just don't think it looks great on the shelf, and you got a couple colors.
Yeah.
And another reason is they're incredibly expensive. I mean, just obviously. So I went ahead and tried to do the licensed, but I'm a couple games away. But I've kind of just like took a break on trying to get them all and started collecting more for the Super NES, the Genesis stuff I played as a kid. Like there's a ton of NES games on that wall that I had never played until I was older. So I went, more with the nostalgia after a while and started focusing on that. But I'll definitely finish it. I just don't. I'm kind of afraid to. I don't know what I'll collect next, so I'm
Right.
kind of like afraid to do that.
So you're saying that you don't think those off-color faded Bible games, those blue weird looking, you don't think those look beautiful on a shelf? I don't either.
I mean, everybody is into their own thing. I have a buddy that is doing, licensed and unlicensed, and it's just I don't know. I think it's an eyesore. I always like the
Yeah,
gray. I always like the solid look. Um, because when you get into those color dream games that are like light blue, man, those things like look crazy after a while. So they'll look,
yeah.
and even the blue will look different from the cart next cart to the next cart. So I was just like, well, the games aren't great. So I said, well, I'll just try to do the licensed. And that
Then you
was
got
my focus.
the Tengen games.
Yeah, I do have one Tengen game, and that's Tengen Tetris because
Yeah,
I think it's fantastic. So,
that's the go-to.
and yeah, it's really good. I like the NES version of Tetris also. The music is by far better, but I know a lot of people who swear by the Tengen version. So
Now, what's cool, Sean, I like to see here, there's something to be said about a smaller channel, a few hundred subs, that you have a direct relationship with your viewers, and it's already clear within the chat that the people that are stopping by are big fans of yours, know all about your content. What's interesting, we see, because we have channels all the way up to 10,000 subs, 20,000 subs, and what'll shock you is a lot of those channels, while they get tons of comments on their video, if they tell viewers to go somewhere, they don't necessarily go. You know what I mean? So what's interesting is a smaller channel, sometimes you have that direct connection with your fan base and your viewers, which is very cool to see.
yeah, it's kind of wild. Like I try to reply to everybody's comment, but YouTube's kind of weird. Like it's crazy. I'll have to get on YouTube Studio sometimes just to see certain comments. So I used to just comment after they did in the comment section on the video, but after a while, I noticed I went to my studio and there was like 50 comments that I had never even seen.
Yeah.
So this whole algorithm deal, I don't know if that has something to do with it, but so I try to reply to all those, and a lot of my videos are more memory based. Like they're all, if I make a video about it, it's something that I personally experienced or had or owned or played or watched or things like that. There's everything is has a reason for being on my channel, and a lot of that stuff is like some people say, well, you need to focus your channel on one thing, and that's true. Like the algorithm, it probably likes that,
Yeah.
but my channel is I just put out stuff I want to put out.
That's the way.
I like toys, I like games, I like movies, so that's what I talk about. Like one of my most popular videos is a video about USA Up All Night, and that was a like a late night show that used to come on the USA Network back in the 90s, and it just showed like B level kind of like Skinemax risque movies that they cut out all the gore and cut out all the naked chicks, but it was like, you know, zombie cheerleaders and just cheesy movies. But it's by far my most viewed video because people watched that a ton back in the day, and I had no clue it would like blow up like it did.
Right. It reminds
So
me of something I used to watch. It was called Saturday Anime on the Sci-Fi Channel when they would
yeah,
show crazy
yeah,
movies, Akira and Ghost in the Shell and Ninja Scroll, all these ultra violent Japanese anime movies, which
yeah,
are kind of cult classics by now. But at the time in the U.S., I mean, everybody was just kind of getting familiarized with those, and it was really cool to see. Just on American TV, because we had so many damn cartoons in the '90s, as you know. It was just like it's too many to even remember. If we can go through, you go through some of the intros to those shows, it's like in the back of your mind, you barely remember some of them, but I can remember distinctly those anime movies I saw the first time.
yeah. It's funny you say that because like my girlfriend has a daughter and she's starting to be into anime and stuff like that. She watches a show called My Hero Academia. I think that's what it's called. So uh, just when I saw that, it just reminded me of all the '90s anime that used to be out. And I used to go to this place called Book Broker, and they would just have a crap ton of anime, like comics, old VHSs, like the old school Dragon Ball Z stuff. And you could rent those things there, or you could even, I remember at one time you could like rent out the comic books and like
Yeah.
you could return them, and like everything would be out. You couldn't find a VHS of anime that was in. Like I remember watching the old Akira, and it was just so cool, man. But so it just reminded me of that, like how big anime was in the '90s. A lot of people think it's bigger now, but I remember it in the '90s, and it was enormous. In my area, it was. I know that for a fact.
So Ninja Turtles for me, what comes to mind right off the bat, as a kid walking down that aisle in KB Toy Store, that was what it was at the mall by me. Toys R Us was somewhere farther away, but my memory was going down that Toys R Us, excuse me, KB Toy Store aisle and seeing those bright neon colors, right, on the
Oh yes,
hardbacks, and they just
yes.
popped, and it stood out, and you just wanted every one of those fucking things. I mean, what are your first memories of Ninja Turtle toys and the show?
Wow. The show when it came out was huge. I think every kid liked Ninja Turtles, but uh, when they brought the figures out and then they had the coinciding cartoon, it just blew my mind. Like you said, the packaging. That's why I collect, is because of those the packaging. The green looks incredible. All mine are unpunched, and there's different versions of the card backs, and I don't have the incredibly rare ones like the fun club inserts and things like that. I probably really just got the basic ones, just the base sets, but I I mean I love them. I would never get rid of those things, and I was fortunate enough to get them before they had the toys that made this episode, and everything blew up for
Oh,
the turtles.
everything exploded right along with Masters of the Universe, Real
Yes.
Busters, all that stuff. Um, for those that are listening and maybe want to get a bargain collection of carded turtles, they have some six packs coming out. I don't know if you've seen those.
Yeah, they're actually based on the retro cards. So and they all come at once. So you could get, you know, you could get Leonardo, Donatello, Michelangelo, and Raphael, and then you can get April O'Neil and Splinter in one pack. And they're supposed
Right.
to release the four for the bad guys also.
So the first six pack is what you just said exactly, and
Yeah.
it's in the Turtles van box.
Yes.
Okay.
That's awesome.
So for $100, essentially, you get all six of those sealed.
Yes.
And for those of you guys listening that don't want to spend your mortgage payment
Oh,
on
definitely.
the vintage, that's the next best thing. And then the other six pack that's coming out right around that time too is in the mutant module, I
Yes,
believe,
a mutant module. Yes.
and you get some villains in that. I can't remember all the names of the ones.
Well, it should be just the
Slash one,
original.
right?
Yeah, it should be the original four at first. Like,
You
so you'll
crank,
have, yeah, they'll have Krang, Splinter, and then Rocksteady Bebop. But one could be Slash.
right?
But yeah,
So the pre-orders on a lot of those are sold out, but I would recommend, by later fall, you're going to see them on eBay and the prices are going to normalize, because what happens is enough get sold and get out in the wild that the price starts to go down. So like you don't want to get those now or like
yeah,
in the next month or two, but wait till like the fall. Yeah, and then
yeah.
because that's a good price, $100 for
Oh,
six
without a
sealed
doubt.
turtles.
Without a doubt. I mean, just one carded turtle from either, even the vintage line from 88, 89, or 90 will run you over $100 bill for
Right.
just one. So getting all six that look authentic, I think is great for budget collectors, because I don't collect for value. So when I got these, I collect for the visual look.
Oh
So
yeah.
when I see that bright green and it looks just the same, I would pick them up also if I didn't own the vintage.
And what I found myself doing was say Masters of the Universe, for example. So I have most of that line vintage loose and with their weapons, but what I do not have was any sealed. So what the next best thing for me just for in my world is I've been picking up the new Mattel ones, and those serve as the sealed collection for me because I can't be this guy that's spending 100 on a figure sealed. That'll never be me. I'll never have that kind of money. But the next best thing is, you get the new ones for $15 each. They have very similar card backs.
Yes.
They actually have more points of articulation now.
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. There's a term that I've kind of been throwing around and I've heard people using. It's called priced out. And it's a lot of this stuff, people are just priced out. A normal person with bills, a mortgage, kids, they can't afford to go buy, 10 of the original vintage 10 back turtles for I
Right.
don't know what they would cost now. So if you were huge into Transformers, He-Man, anything like that, they're remaking them, and I think it's fantastic because anybody can get into collecting. It's not about the value on these things; it's about actually bringing back those memories that you had of the originals that you can actually have again by having these new redesigns, and I think it's fantastic.
And I don't feel there you could have your hardcore collectors be like, well, I can't mix new and old. It
Yeah,
doesn't bother because it's close enough for me. When you look at how, like, if you're talking Masters of the Universe, when you look at how spot on the recent line, the Masters of the Universe Origins is what it's called. When you
yeah,
look at how spot on that new line is, excluding maybe the first release He-Man where they changed his face, right?
yeah. They
Uh,
changed the face.
but
Everybody was in an uproar about that.
the rest of the line, if you look at the figures and you look at the vintage, you're getting essentially the same figure and you're getting more points of articulation. So there's no reason that you can't be proud to display those sealed along with your vintage line, as far as I'm concerned. Now that's just
Yeah.
me.
So there
So
are definitely people out there that are stickler about vintage and non-vintage, but I just think the love of the toy is what matters.
right.
I feel like if everybody was like that, it would just be unfortunate that nobody would collect unless it was anything from the original 80s vintage line for any of these lines. So there's a reason they're remaking these, and it's to get them in the hands of people who have a budget but would still like the original look and feel, and to just throw them on a wall and just look at and appreciate. Because there was a ton, especially people my age who watch my channel, uh, they were kids during the 80s, and not every kid that I knew didn't have everything. So this is a great way to pick up vintage looking toys and just fill all those holes in that you didn't have when you were a kid at a reasonable price. $15-20 a figure is fantastic.
That's the same thing it does for me too. It's bringing back the childhood memories and filling in the gaps, just like we're doing with the games, because we had
Yes.
that limited stack of games
Oh
uh,
yeah.
that we had as a kid, and we appreciated what we had, but as adults, we want to fill in the holes there. You know,
Yeah, definitely. And
do you
that's the thing.
remember? Do you remember on that same topic, like your first stack of games as a kid? Would it be NES? Do you remember that first stack? What were some of the what was the good? What was the bad in that?
Yeah, my like original NES games were very few. I was unfortunate, so I was incredibly poor, but somehow my mom scraped together enough money. She took her entire bonus and bought me an NES action set. I
Nice.
remember one Christmas, and it blew my mind. So it came with Super Mario Brothers. We played that nonstop. I only remember actually owning maybe two more games because I would walk down these train tracks really like a mile down the road, and there was a little rental store, and every now and then I'd go rent a game. But I remember owning two games, and one was TNC Surf Design,
Oh yeah.
and the other one was RoboCop. And I just somehow remember having those and never returning them. So I'm assuming that I actually own those. But I remember renting other games like Knight Rider. It was weird in the NES days. You didn't really have the internet, so you could just look up if a game was great or not. So you would go by the front cover. So Knight Rider looked badass, RoboCop looked badass. So I would just There was another one called Days of Thunder. So I was like, oh, this looks great too. I'll try this. So there was, basically just you would look at the front and be like, well, and look at the back and be like, that looks pretty good. Let's rent it. So that's how I would do that back then. But I didn't really own very many for the original NES because we just didn't have the money. But I had my fair share of rentals.
And this is what you had to go by. I mean, say it was a movie licensed NES game, right? They literally
Yes.
just gave you the same damn cover as the movie.
Yeah.
Flip the game over. You're lucky if you got 2 or 3 screenshots in a
Yeah.
small screen, and that's what you have to go by. That's
Yeah.
it.
So yeah. So if you saw RoboCop and you're like, oh, RoboCop was badass movie, so you're like, he's gonna be awesome in this game, and then you play it, and it's not the worst game. Definitely, it's playable, but something like Knight Rider, yeah, it's I don't know. I don't think I would pop Knight Rider in anytime
Right.
soon and play it. So that's all you had was the front cover and maybe, like you said, a couple screenshots on the back.
Especially at that time too, because these 8-bit graphics, I mean, you could knock out a fun side scroller, platformer,
Yeah.
puzzle game. What you could not do realistically, and even in 16-bit you couldn't do it realistically, was a racing game.
Oh
It just,
yeah.
I mean, you could argue, what's the Rad Race? You could argue Rad Racer, but dude, come on,
I remember my
driving.
uncle. He got his Genesis, and I'll never forget it. He got to pick two games, and the first game he picked was his first choice, and he's like, "Well, I guess I'll go ahead and get Streets of Rage as a throw me in, but I really want this," and it was called Hard Driving. And it blew our minds when we were young. But if you go try to play that, it is just so primitive. It looks terrible. It's choppy, and you just couldn't pull it off. I don't think you could pull it off very well, back then. So Micro Machines, it's pretty playable for the NES, but there's racing games. Yeah, they were far and few between, or however they say that about finding decent ones.
I guess we could argue that because Sega made the arcades for Outrun and Super Hang-On, those ports
Yes.
on the Genesis.
Yes,
But,
Outrun was pretty good.
but even then, it's still not quite the arcade,
Oh, definitely. There's something about if you ever played the original Outrun, it's just grabbing that steering wheel and then the manual shift. It's just there's something about that experience that you lost when you came to the home version. And
Now,
that's
was there a time that one of the things I like to talk about with toys is just like a TV show, they have that jump the shark moment where they just kind of run out of ideas. For me, it was like when you started having like the farmer turtle, the clown turtle. You
yes,
started to get really goofy because if you look at the first 2-3 years of the line, right, the
yeah,
villains were fantastic. All they kept coming out with villain after villain, and you'd see them
yes,
in the show, and they were badass looking. But then they started just giving the turtles themes that made no
yeah,
fucking sense. Why are they playing
yeah.
football now?
And a
Why are
lot
they
of and,
space? Why are they a farmer? Why are they a clown? That doesn't make any sense.
and that's the thing. So when they first were releasing them, they were like, "Hey, we'll release these as soft heads," and that's a rare version of these. But when they started, a couple parents complained that the kids were taking the heads off and choking on them. They were like, "Well, we're going to change these, but we just wanted to see how well the line would do." So that's when they started making them actual plastic heads because they were like, "Well, the line's taken off, so we'll go ahead and mass produce these." So when they made 88, they made all the original 10, and then 89 and 90, they had individual characters like Genghis Frog, Ace Duck, Slash, things like that. Well, like you said, they started the cartoon got so big that they were like, we can't think of all these characters. Why don't we just put them in a different outfit? And like the kids, let's see if the kids buy them. So when those started flying off the shelf, they were like, Samurai Leo was one of the early ones they did. And it's an incredibly popular character because Super 7 is redoing these. And that's one of the first ones that they're redoing that was just an actual outfit swap was Samurai Leo. So they were popular too. So they're like, well, I mean, we could take all this time and create these new characters, or we could just throw them in different outfits, like a clown and a farmer. But a
Right.
lot of them aren't, I guess, socially. appropriate now. Like they had like an Indian one, so like you couldn't get away with that stuff now. But back then, nobody cared, so they were just pumping them out. And I collect just the original characters, so I
Yes.
don't have Samurai Leo. But I have every different character from 88, 89, and 90, and to me, that's the prime time of the original Playmates line.
You
91
have
was good.
every single character sealed or loose?
No, I have every character sealed, unpunched from 88, 89, and 90. And I
How
was going to go
that?
into 91, but there's a couple like new characters I just didn't like. Like they did Chrome Dome and a couple of ones I really didn't care for. So I quit at 90. I was going to go through 91 though.
And I think you're going to show some more in this one. Yeah, like how many figures is that in those 3 years?
Well, the original is the first 10. And then there should be 12 for 88, and there should be 12 or 13 for 89, or for 90, I'm sorry. So
Okay.
you'll have Muckman, Fugitoid, Triceraton, Mondo Gecko, Wingnut, Ray Fillet, Panda Con, General Trag, Rat King. Those are all through 88 or 89 and 90.
And you have all those sealed and unpunched.
Yes, unpunched and sealed.
Right.
I haven't showed them all off, but yes, I do own those unpunched and sealed. And like I said, I was collecting these when they were $40 a figure. Like the original 10 back Bebop is by far the most popular character in the line. Well, nowadays it's the foot soldier because people army build the original foot soldiers.
Right.
So his price shot up incredible. But at the time I was collecting the original 10 backs, Bebop was $100, and that was the most I'd ever seen. So I got most of these for $40, $50 in immaculate condition. All these are incredible. I don't know what they would grade if I sent them off, but I think they would all get 70s at least. And that's on the low end because they're all incredible shape. And used to be able to get them a dime a dozen. But since that episode came out, you just they've skyrocketed. There's actually the sewer play set. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Well,
The sewer layer.
yeah, yeah. So I have that in the box also, and I was actually talking with the guy, and this was about a year ago, right before the episode came out. It was literally within days, and he's like, "I'll let this go for 150," and he goes, "I don't know. Maybe I should wait 2 or 3 days and see what the price jumps up to." And I said, "Hey, man, sell it to me. I'll pay the shipping. I just want it now." And I remember checking that after the episode, like 2 days after the episode, and it had already doubled. It already tripled in price. Actually, it was about
Right.
$400. So I was like, thank goodness I had got that at that time.
We had one other guest on the show that probably has at least maybe 100 seals.
Yeah,
Ray Retro Toys, I believe, is his channel. Like it's like based on like a Star Wars character,
yeah,
Ray's.
yeah,
But yeah, he has a wall of sealed TMNT. It's really cool. Um, and it's like for me, I just have the first like 4 years loose and the
yeah,
playset vehicles, and I'm cool with that. And again, like I said with the Motu, I'm just gonna take these 6 packs that are coming out this summer. And also, they had a 6 pack of the movie Turtles too. Did you see that?
yes. And I do collect the movie turtles also, but I open up all those. So I have every one except for the Spirit of Splinter, which was a Loot Crate exclusive. I have all of those loose, kind of like displayed in my game room also. So, but I open all those. I don't keep any of those sealed.
Right.
Mm.
So, but that is cool for like people that are listening. Like, if you want to have a nice little cheap collection, so that would be like what, maybe 280 for you get 3 6 packs that we talked about now. So you'd
Yeah,
have you'd have 18 sealed turtles for 280. Like
yeah,
that's a cool starter set for people that are looking to get into collecting turtles now, but are feeling like it's too late for them, because the vintage line's so high. That's not a bad jumping off point.
No, because like you said, the vintage is insane right now. But one line that or one company that is doing basically redoing these is the Super 7. And I have moved, I do collect those also. And the cool thing about those is they're
The
based on the original, yes, the Ultimates. They're based on the original line. So they are a little more pricier, but you're getting an
like
updated version of the Playmates line. And that's
like
why I collect it.
I think they're 40, right? 40 each if you get them.
Yes. And you can actually get them in a bundle. If you buy the wave all at once, it's a better deal. So I think I was getting the waves for like 170. So and there was four in a wave, and they've released the first two waves. So I show them off in some of my videos. But if you're wanting like an updated look, but with the feel of the vintage line, that is a fantastic option because for one, they look incredible. The Bebop, it just blew my mind when I seen it. It was just incredible the way they updated him. So
Yeah.
uh, that's another way that you can kind of get the Playmates feel with newer figures too, because those look fantastic unboxed and displayed. Plus, there's a ton of parts of articulation, so you can actually there's actually tutorials on YouTube of how to set them up, those specific figures, and have like an unbelievable battle scene, and they all stand. It's crazy.
And for people that are toy collectors, Super Seven's normally known for their Kenner Star Wars sized figures, which are the smaller ones. They're usually known for that. But these Ultimates, like you said, they're way bigger. You get a
Yeah,
display box, almost like next
yeah.
display box.
Yeah, it's fantastic. If you leave them in, there's actually a slip cover that you take off, and it has a window display. So if you want to display them without opening them, keeping them sealed, you can still display them, and you can see the entire figure and keep, it's still sealed in the package. It's great.
Yeah, yeah. All the ones that I have, I took the cover off. I don't even
Yeah,
understand. I guess that's just to protect the front.
and
Because
that's
I
the
mean,
thing. I was like battling. We're like, do I want to throw this away? But I'm like, it's such a great looking package that I'm like, I
yeah,
wonder if I'm allowed to. Like, I wonder if, I would want to put this back on later. Like, is it part of the packaging or what here? So, yeah, I was kind of struggling with that for a while. Like, where am I going to
yeah.
put all these slip covers when I display all the figures?
I don't think I'm ever gonna put the slip covers back on. I'll be honest, I didn't keep mine. Because
Yeah.
why am I gonna not? When am I gonna not want to see them displayed you know what I mean, in the packaging?
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
see
And
the figure.
yeah, people tore me apart because I opened my movie figures and they were like, "Well, what'd you do with the boxes?" I'm like, "I just threw them away." And they're just like, "Are you
Yeah,
crazy?" I was just like, "They're just toys, man." Like
yeah.
people take these things crazy serious, and I do too. I kind of keep them in great shape, but anything new, I just feel like there's enough. There's going to be enough of these now. Maybe the Token Razar set just because it was an exclusive, but even that I've heard that they're going to re-release that. So any of those new stuff, I don't feel bad about opening at all. But the vintage, I'll never open those because it's just you'll never find them again.
Well, think about like DVDs and Blu-rays, right? It almost normalizes them all to not have the slip cover on, because say you have the slip cover on like a Blu-ray or a DVD, then it's like a sore thumb on the shelf, right?
Yes,
Because
and
all your clams are on
a
there,
smooth. Yeah,
Blu-ray, and then you got these slipcover ones just sticking out. It almost looks stupid. So,
yeah.
man, I just throw out that slipcover. And
Well,
what
and they
if that's like a collector's illegal in the collector's world, whatever.
yeah, it's kind of blows my mind because there's actually some slip covers that are worth a ton of money, and
Yeah,
that's
I'm
the
sure.
reason. They got like the cartoon for Spider-Man. I think it's Into the Spider-Verse. There's actually a slipcover version, and my buddy was looking for it forever, and he had the Blu-ray, but he could never find the cover. And I mean, the cover's like $30, so he's just like, I'm not gonna rebuy the movie because you can't rebuy it with it. So you
Yeah.
gotta like have somebody that's selling just the cover. He ended up eventually finding it, but it was just like, yeah, a lot of people throw these away, so they become extremely hard to find and sought after.
And I tend to not like steel books either because then that also sticks out like a sore thumb. I'd rather just have the normal standard stuff. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
just the nice label, the blue at the top, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because if you ever go to 4K, so I started collecting a couple 4K movies, but those were only my like all-time favorites. I would only
Right.
collect like Batman, Beetlejuice, Goonies, Karate Kid, things like that. And almost every one of those have a slipcover. So, but some don't. So when I'm looking at them on the shelf, it's the same thing. You got that big slipcover that's kind of sticking out the top, and it just doesn't look flat. I don't know why they do that.
Now, what would interest me because I don't have 4Ks. The most I have is the Blu-rays for resolution. What
Yeah.
interests me is, say you have an old movie like a Karate Kid, but then you have like a new movie like in Avengers. Now, do you notice the 4K jump in resolution more? I would think you would notice it a lot more with a newer movie because it's shot newer versus
Yes.
when they have upgrading like a Karate Kid to 4K. Do you really see that much of a difference between the Blu-ray and the 4K on that?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that because Karate Kid, it's one of those movies that it was made so long ago, and like you said, you watch a new Avengers movie, it looks ridiculous. The Karate
Yeah,
Kid does look better, but it you can only make it look so much better. It wasn't shot. It wasn't shot recently, and it wasn't shot in film that they can really remaster that much.
right.
So it is better, but one movie that blew me away that they did do was the original Batman, and I had watched that, and I remember seeing a scene in the movie where you first see the Joker, and it blew my mind. You could actually see like the stubble on his beard coming through the makeup. I was just
Okay.
like, it was incredible. I was like, how did they pull this off on such an old movie?
Well, my guess on that, and I'm not a movie expert by any means, but
Yeah.
my guess on that would be that they spent a fucking shitload of money on that Tim Burton movie because I remember
Yes.
like they there's stories about it how it went over budget and stuff, and I
Yeah.
obviously it kick ass when it came out, but I guarantee you they shot that on the best equipment they could have. So whatever film they used, I mean, I'm
That
sure they.
that could be true. Yeah, because something like a Karate Kid was a risky subject. It wasn't, they were like, this might not take off or not. You know what I mean? But a Batman, I mean, he was in comics already, so they were like,
Yeah,
we're gonna put a little more money into this and see how it does. But the original Batman and Batman Returns, I had watched on 4K, and I was just like, oh, the Catwoman suit. I mean, you can see every stitch. I swear, it blew my mind. Because I was like,
yeah,
I was skeptical. I was like, oh, there's no way it could look better than Blu-ray. But there is certain movies that yes, it does look better, and it's noticeable as soon as you watch it.
for sure. And yeah, I love the suits and that and those movies, the sets. I love like Dick Tracy from that same period too because it fucking looked like a comic book. Like it was
Yes.
over the top with special effects.
Yeah.
Some people are like, today, like the kids today. What would they say, right? Oh, Keaton looks like stiff in the bat suit, like he can't move. But who
Yeah.
fucking does the suit look cooler? Like
Oh, definitely.
maybe he
And that was
couldn't flex and move as much, but it doesn't matter because it looked cooler.
Yeah, that suit is iconic. I mean, that suit is so iconic that they actually have it on display in a museum. Like they have the other ones, but that suit in particular is like it was auctioned for. I mean, somebody spent a ton of money getting that for their museum. So that piece is iconic in itself. And if it looked terrible, I doubt somebody would want to display it. But um, there was a lot of families that were upset when Batman Returns came out because they were marketing the toy for McDonald's Happy Meals,
Yeah.
and McDonald's was like, "Whoa, man, your original like movie was incredibly dark. We can't market this movie for." They were upset about it because they wanted it more friendly. That's why Batman Returns is kind of a lot less dark than the original Batman.
Yeah, I my only critique for because I love both Batman and Batman Returns. I wish Tim Burton would have like chilled a little bit with like Penguin spitting shit out of his mouth the whole time. He's like like spitting like blood or whatever the fuck out of his mouth, and it was absolutely disgusting. To be fair,
That,
Danny
that
DeVito in that is one of
oh,
the
he killed it.
grossest looking
Yes,
villains.
that makeup was incredible.
He really looked like a fish.
Yeah, there's a part of the movie where he's at the party, and in 4K it looks ridiculous. He's like eating this fish, and it's just you see it all hanging. It looks incredible. I was like, man, they killed it with this. He that was such a fantastic character, and I can't believe it was made that long ago because he fits that suit perfectly.
And it's like Burton didn't care if he shocked people, right? He's like, well, fuck it, let's go over the top. Whereas then you get the Joel Schumacher, right, with fucking Batman
Oh
on,
Lord,
and it's like a neon shitstorm, super family friendly garbage, like
yeah. And like I said, that was the thing. It was he was supposed to do the next one after Batman Returns, and they
I,
were like, "Hey, we want to change all this stuff," and he's like, "That's not my vision. I'm out." Like he was
that's why
literally
he
signed on, and he bounced out
backed
because of it.
out. Keaton backed out too. He said, "No, Tim Burton, I'm
Yeah,
not
no,
doing it."
exactly. Like I mean, they have polls all the time. Like, who's the best Batman? There's two that stick out. You know what I mean? And it's always him. He's always wins the number one. It's awesome.
It's always Keaton and Bale,
Yeah.
but you can't hear anything fucking Christian Bale says as Batman. He's like,
See that
you can't hear a
people
word he said.
Yeah, people love that. But like they're like, "Oh, he has to disguise his voice." I'm like, "He didn't in the original." And they're like, "Yeah, that's fake. Everybody would know it was Keaton, they would know it was the character." And I'm like, "That's the whole cool thing about the movie is he's hanging out with her the whole movie and they have no clue that it's him." Like it's just something about it is just cool.
Definitely.
I don't think you have to change his voice to conceal who he is. I mean, I think if you're watching it like that, you're watching it too literally.
And I really miss that era of the sets. The sets you got in the 80s and 90s.
Oh man, yeah.
It just made you feel like you were there. And
Gotham City is fantastic. The snow, I mean, down to every detail, they killed it, man. Like I said, I've watched it on the 4K, and I'm like, for its time, it was just revolutionary. I can't believe I'm glad that he put so much love and appreciation into that because that's what we remember from the movie is the actual atmosphere. It felt like a city.
the Batmobile was so much cooler because now when they do the Batmobile, it looks like some kind of fucking stupid military tank. That's not a Batmobile, dude.
Yeah, I know. Like it's funny you say that because there's actually like there's some kind of vehicle you can buy that drives on the street and people call it the Batmobile and it looks so stupid. And something about the original Batmobile, I think they actually had it on display in Tennessee. I think I went there and they actually had it in like a little museum of maybe a replica of it, but it looked so cool. And the original was sold for a ton of money. Somebody bought it and like kept it in pristine shape.
Oh, really? I would have thought they had multiples. So there
I
was just
think
one
yeah,
Batmobile.
yeah, I think they did. But so this one he probably bought like a replica. But even the replica, the ones I was looking at, it looked phenomenal. It looked like Batman would drive it. Like I don't think Batman would jump in an armored six-wheel tank and drive around, with nitrous. Yeah, I just I
Right.
don't get it. Like
Because like the Back to the Future series, like they had fucking 5, 6 of those DeLoreans, like on the
yeah,
set.
yeah.
To some to stunt, dude, like
Hmm.
to do stunts with, some just to drive, some just to like they had one for every use that they
Yes.
modified for each scene. So, but yeah, that would be amazing to own the original, like the one that Keaton was in the most, because I'm sure that they had like a lot of the scenes he might not even been in the thing. They're just they're driving it with like a remote control or some shit. Who knows?
Yeah, like the original any of these vehicles that are original, like the original Back to the Future and the original Batmobile, like those things just didn't get destroyed. Somebody has the original. Like
Yeah,
even back then they were like, "You know what? We're keeping this." Like it's not going to they're not going to just be like, it's just one of the ones we were toying around with." They're going to it's definitely going to be excluded from the pack.
now let's talk about Shredder for a second. you can't get this fucking figure to stand up.
Oh man, I talk about that in the video, and that was one of my like pet peeves when I was a kid. I would
Yeah.
play with Shredder, and I'm like, he doesn't stand up. They based that off a actual comic, actually a page in the comic, because they had these concepts, and they were like, hey, what do you want Shredder to look like? And they basically threw him the material and was like, well, this is all we got so far, because there was only supposed to be like one issue of Ninja Turtles. Like they killed Splinter, or they killed Shredder in the first issue.
They made him look like a spastic fuck. Like
Yeah.
his
So
arms are
they,
all disheveled, his legs
yeah,
are in a weird stance. Nothing makes sense about the stance. Like I dig the outfit, the
yeah,
costume, and the mat. Like everything looks good, but the stance is horrible on every level of that figure.
yes. And that's the thing. So they took that photo and was like, well, we'll just make the character just like this. And it was just, I don't know how it got approved. Like I said, they were trying to pump these out because it was taken off. And they were like, well, we'll put this out. But that's another cool thing about the Super 7 line is they fixed his legs so he can actually pose and stand. That was one of the things that stuck out to me as soon as I saw the new Shredder from the Super 7 Ultimates. I was like, he can stand. Like, this is incredible.
Yeah, I really, you talk about army building. I really like the gray version of the foot soldier. Was that the movie version?
Yes, they actually, and that's another thing. People, you know, they army build these movie versions, and they were only GameStop at first, so you had to buy actual single pack foot soldiers, and one would have like an axe, and the other one had like nunchucks. So they make you buy two. Well, they got so many scalpers were just and like slitting the box open and then taking out the exclusive weapon because there was an actual one different weapon inside the Walmart packs. And then they were, if they couldn't get rid of them, they were taking them back. So if you did get lucky and find it on the shelf, it wouldn't have that weapon in it, and you couldn't tell. Walmart worker isn't going to be able to tell. So you would get lucky enough to actually grab them, and then it wouldn't have the weapon to display it, and then they would sell the weapon online for whatever $20. So this whole the whole NECA situation is just crazy with these figures.
And as far as NECA goes, I have a lot of the figures. I'm not going for everything they put out. I love the Friday the 13th stuff. I
Yeah,
love the movie turtle figures. But then they kind of have all these like variations of every like the figures trying to make them look like from the show. I bought I think the first like the first four, and then they like try to put them in another shade, another color, and then I'm like,
yeah,
okay, I'm out already. I'm out. I'm not gonna,
yeah. So
you know,
they originally released them for a darker tone, which was the comic book tone.
yeah,
Well, people were upset, and they were like, "Well, these are cool," and the NECA was like, "Well, we could just re-release them in the brighter green, which is based off the cartoons, and just sell those and make money off those. And it's an easy color swap." So they re-released them, and those things were crazy. People were scalping them. Like I had like the first probably 20 sets, 15, 20 sets from that. And I recently just got out of that line because they're all Target exclusives,
yeah,
and they're incredibly hard to find. If you do find them, you're paying $100 at least. That's when they first come out. But some of
right.
these sets are, I mean, you look at the April O'Neil set, the Slash set, they're at least $150 to $175.
Yeah,
And
see, I checked out by then. I got the first four turtles and
yeah,
like Shredder, Krang, and some foot soldiers. Okay, I bought
yeah,
that first those first four boxes, I think. Then I got the box that was Bebop and Rocksteady,
yeah.
and then
Those to be fair, those look great.
I bought the Super Shredder from Turtles 2, the NECA one, because that was so cool, and the
Yep.
Tokan Razar 2-pack you had to pre-order.
Yeah.
And that's basically all I have aside from the movie Turtle NECA ones, which is still a shitload, like enough. Like it's just
Yeah.
enough. I don't need every. And then they just started trying to do like, yeah, I can't keep up with the rest of that stuff. I'm fine. And I guess I hear from a lot of channels mixed stuff. I guess because I've never taken my NECA stuff out of the boxes, but I guess some of them have shit durability. Like some of
Oh
the
man.
Some of
Yeah,
the
that's
arms break the fuck off. See, and
yeah.
I don't even know that because I've never opened any of them because they look so much better in a display box, right?
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. A lot of people were afraid to open these. So when they bought them, they were like, "I'd love to display these," and everybody's like, "Oh, be careful when you open them. This is breaking. That's breaking." So everybody's like, "Well, hell, I'm afraid to take them out of the package." So
Yeah.
that's another reason I got out of them was because I actually bought a Bebop and Rocksteady, and I was so excited when I finally got them. Well, I literally pulled Bebop out of the box, and his foot was just remained in the box. And I was like, "Whoa!" So I get a hold of him, and I said, "Hey, this is a quality assurance issue here." And they're like, "Okay, well, we'll send you out a replacement." And everybody was bashing them at the time, and they were like, "They don't help. They're unhelpful. They don't respond to messages." So I posted saying like, "Hey, they said they'd send me one out. This is fantastic." So I wait, a month. It finally gets here, and it's literally the bust of Bebop with nothing on it and the legs. So I was like, "What?" So they wanted me to take every arm and head off my original broken one and put it on that to replacement. Like I
Wow.
thought they were just gonna send me a figure. So I was like, "All right, I'll do that, whatever." So I opened that up and the legs broke on it at the hip.
Right.
I'm like, "What the hell?" So I was so fed up by that point that I was just sick of it. I was like, "You know what? I'm done with the NECA stuff." Because and then I got contacted them again, and they were like, "Well, there's nothing really we can do about it. We tried to help." And I'm like, "You sent me another broken figure."
Yeah, and it's like I so when I see people that have like like a glass display case and they have them all out of the box loose,
Yeah,
I really don't think that I just for me they just look way better in the display boxes anyway. So it's not a deal breaker for me. But
yeah,
yeah, I would be completely pissed at the quality control if I was trying to like stand these up loose because I'm
yeah.
sure several of them would break right out of the box. But they give you such good packaging, and like when you open up like one of the Friday the 13th ones, like why anybody would ever want to take it out of that, you
Yeah,
know?
see, that's the thing. They started really stepping their game up with the packaging, especially with the horror movie stuff, is because there's multiple horror movies. Like Jason, there's a ton of movies. So every one of those front covers on those movies were different. So when they release a figure, they put out, Jason Takes Manhattan or, Jason Lives. All of them are unique covers. So seeing
Yeah,
those in the package, you don't really have to take Jason out because you know what he looks like pretty much. It's pretty much just a mask difference or maybe a little bit of the clothing, but you want that front cover. You want that awesome Jason Takes Manhattan where he's, with the huge knife standing over Manhattan. Like you want that. You want that actually for people to look at when you're looking at your figures. So I can see keeping those in the box without a doubt.
and for the NECA haters out there, and there's a lot of toy channels that are NECA haters. Here's what I'd say though: it's because it's a it's a tough situation because there's no other brand making those figures right now. So you either get those and like enjoy them for what they are, display them in their display boxes, or who else has those licenses?
Yeah,
I
that's
think
the thing.
McFarlane did for a little bit, like 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and they don't anymore. So you either have to get the NECA or you don't get any of them because there's nobody else making them.
Yeah, they pretty much it's like a monopoly. Like I said, the quality on these things, I've collected them out of the package and inside the package, and I've had a lot of issues. And a lot of people are saying that if you do collect out of the package on these NECA toys, they say to put them in warm water before you pose at all. And if you
Right.
actually look on their website and in the fine print that they say these basically are collectibles. They're not made
Yeah.
to move. They're not made to pose. And it's like you're you're saying not to, but you're basing all your figures with all this articulation, saying showing all these cool pictures of this stuff they can do. And it's just I don't know. A lot of people hate on them. I don't hate on them. They make
Yeah.
fantastic looking figures, without a doubt. The
You
turtles look
just gotta
movie
know
accurate.
what they can do and know what they can't do. They're not for you to play with. They're for adult collectors, display pieces for like your movie room, your game room. They
Yep.
look great on the shelf. You
Yep.
don't take
They're
them out.
made to literally just sit there.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's another thing that I go with the Super Sevens is because if you do open them up, these things aren't hard to get. You're not going to a store to get these Super Sevens. You get online, buy the entire wave, and they just ship them to you. They don't run out. Wave
Yeah.
one did with Raphael. A lot of people were trying to get him, but they're going to release all the turtles in an actual wave. I was reading. So if you do miss one or two of them, you can get them all at once if you do need them all. But like, yeah, you're not going to store to store. You're not wasting gas. You're not paying scalpers. You just grab them, buy them, and they send them to you. And that's the NECA stuff. That's the most frustrating thing is the availability. These
Yeah.
things are
Oh yeah.
they sell out instantly, and you're buying them from a scalper. I mean, that's it.
And you just made a great point earlier. You're talking about how annoying part of what got you out of it was the Target exclusives, the Walmart exclusives. They're have fucking exclusives now for online retailers. A fucking
Yeah,
online site has an exclusive now.
yeah.
That
I mean,
sucks
I
because
know,
what
and
it does
oh,
is make the scalpers raise their fucking dickhead prices.
yeah, and that's the thing. They don't, and they advertise when they're going live. That's the bad thing. So they got all their bots like ready to roll at
Yeah,
this time. If they didn't say when they were going to release these and drop these pre-orders, just like with the PlayStations, like, hey, we're dropping them on this day. Everybody with the bots, like, cool. Let me just type this in my computer and buy about 30 of these things. Like, so if
there
you
shouldn't
didn't,
be people running businesses based on buying out inventories just so other people can't have it and they can overcharge. That's
yeah,
highway robbery. That's like the definition
yeah,
of highway robbery right there.
that's the thing. It's such a sensitive subject with scalping, the word in general, and people doing this, man. It makes actually collecting as a hobby and as a passion for it extremely frustrating. And a lot of people are like, well, they're just trying to make their money, or you need to be quicker on the trigger, or you need to go be waiting out at stores. And that's the thing, that there's a fine line between collecting something and paying a scalper for it, or a scalper like with the sports cards. They're buying every single thing. They're buying every box, every card. So it's so
Right.
hard to just get it if you actually want to collect.
It
And
is.
it pushes everybody away because you're paying. I mean, sport card market right now is just insane. I can't, I mean, I've seen some of the stuff that they're selling the boxes, 20, 30, $40 boxes at Walmart are going for $300, $400. I mean, it just blows my mind that people are doing this and you can't get your hands on them. It's unfortunate.
Now, I believe we're on your top 5 most rented videos when you're younger. That's what we got. We got like Stallone here, Over the Top. We had Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah.
So, it's funny looking back at these movies, the 80s, the action blockbuster star, right? You had Schwarzenegger in Predator. I think that was one of yours too.
Yeah.
These larger than life actors and characters in movies, we have them to a certain point today, but let's just be honest, there's a little lamer. It's a little
Well,
lame when it's like just The Rock, or it's
well,
Vin Diesel, or it's not the same. Like it's
no, it's not.
Stallone.
And a lot of people are like,
Like,
well, they're more realistic now. It's like, oh, they got, Tom Holland is Spider-Man. Like, he's a kid.
yeah,
Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man. Like, I want to see Arnold, I want to see Arnold in Commando kicking
yeah,
everybody's ass. I want to see Stallone putting his arm down and breaking people and over the top. Like, that's what I grew up on. That's what I love. They just say they're like muscle bound, but these movies, I mean, look at some of these movies. Bloodsport. It's People love that movie.
yeah.
People love First Blood. I mean, it's an incredible movie. You can't knock the actual movie. It's such gritty entertainment, and it's has such a true meaning for actual veterans that come back and have problems with their mental stability, and the way that we not me, but society treats them. It's crazy.
Yeah, PTSD.
Yeah.
Um, the thing is too. Here's what all the '80s movies and maybe even some early '90s movies had in common. They were triumph stories, right? It
Yes.
was root for a character. Who can you really root for these days in movies? I mean, maybe an Avengers or Star Wars remake or whatever, but not so much
Well,
because you had your Karate Kid. We were talking about it before. It's a triumph story. It's about a character who is aiming to be something more than they are. They're trying to better themselves, right?
yes. Yes. Exactly. Like you don't think of when you think of your life, most people think like, man, I wish I could overcome something, or I wish I was this. I can relate to this guy being down and out and finally getting a come up or finally getting some respect. Like I can't think of me being Tom Holland or me being Iron Man. I just there's no there's no coolness in that for me. Like I feel like I if I was going to be one of these guys, it would definitely be somebody from the 80s in these movie roles.
And it's just so fun to like see a guy you can root for because sometimes it's cooler to root for like the bad guy, but you could root for the good guy in the '80s movies. And I think of like a movie like Roadhouse, right? Like Swayze's kind of like this Zen dude, and he's beating up all these douchebags. It's just like you want to root for him, and it's fun. There's like you have fun watching it, like vicariously through just watching the film. And I don't know that you have that as much today, like in the way they do action movies anymore.
Well, yeah, and the reason is because usually, like Avengers is so huge, but there's never a conclusion. Hell, we had to wait 15 years for a conclusion. Like I sit down, I watch, you know, Bloodsport, and I see, Jean-Claude Van Damme starting out, getting, no respect. Then he starts getting the respect. Then he starts kicking ass, and then he starts stepping up and going further and further in the tournament. And then you see the climax. Like there's actually an end. I feel like nowadays there's so many movies that are they're just adding sequels on. You never know. You never see the end of the story. Like I love watching Stallone, and at the beginning of the movie, his son hated him, and at the end, he respects him, and he
Right.
goes off into the sunset. Like I just like that. I like that better. It's more satisfying as a movie watcher.
He wins them over.
Yeah.
And you had that happy ending in a lot of '80s movies. You had, whether it was like a teen comedy, a high school movie, like a John Hughes movie, there was that warmth to it. Like when you finished the movie, you felt uplifted. Like as much as I love all types of movies, especially dramas when you get great acting. But I'll watch a drama these days, and they make you fucking depressed sometimes, man. Like you see these characters, they give you like a slice of life, and it's just
Yeah.
like a downer, right? But you
Yeah.
would like an '80s movie, you just always get like pumped up by the end, like they redeem themselves, or I love stories like that. You don't have that same feeling, and all you got to do is just rewatch some of these '80s movies, and you can see exactly what I'm saying, that you feel like invigorated after watching them. Like you
Oh, definitely. John Hughes movies, like you said, there's always a meaning in them. There's always something that he was trying to persuade. Like Uncle Buck, it's such a forgotten about movie, and I had watched it, but I had watched it recently because I actually picked it up for my collection, and it's the meaning is so good in that movie. And
Yep.
John Candy is just his on screen presence. It's like we lost that guy too early.
Yeah.
He was the Chris Farley before Chris Farley. He was incredible, and he didn't try. It looked like he didn't try. He was just funny. He didn't have to be acting ridiculous. He was
I
just
love his character in Uncle Buck. John Kenny's character was like this flawed, kind of lazy guy, but
yeah, it's his uncle. Yeah,
the kids, watching over those kids, like brought the best out of them. Like he taught them lessons. He's looking out for the daughter when she's dating that guy that just wants to get in her pants, right?
yeah,
The one scene he like busts down the wall. He's got a fucking power drill,
yeah,
like saving the day. Saving her from that guy that's just basically trying to rape the girl.
yeah.
But yeah, like you have these
Like you
like
said, he's
fun
flawed.
characters. but he saves the day, you know?
Yeah, like he's drunk all the time. He doesn't have a job. He loses a job at the beginning of the movie, and it's like he goes over there and he has nothing to lose. That's why he's like, well, I'll go over here and try to help out my brother. And he's it changes him, and he ends up falling in love with the kids, actually caring about him. I don't know. I just don't feel like movies are made like that anymore.
John Candy, R.I.P. John Hughes, R.I.P.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about McDonald's today. It sucks. The Happy Meals toys, they suck.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get what you got back in the day. I miss the McNugget buddies.
Yes.
Best you get is like the soup. I think they had some Super Mario figures over the past 5 years, like here and there, and that's cool. But you used to get consistently good fucking Happy Meal toys back in the day. Let's talk about that. You'd be pumped for your parents to take you to McDonald's to get the toy and collect them all.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So McDonald's back then, I don't know if their marketing team was different, but they were absolute geniuses. They were like, what's hot right now? Oh, DuckTales. Okay, let's make it in a Happy Meal. What's hot right now? Oh, Nintendo. Let's partner up. Nowadays, it's more of, hey, let's not put the effort into the box. We'll do the toy, but the box is just solid and boring. Like, look at that. Like, if you look at the original Nintendo boxes that they did for Super Mario Brothers 3, I mean, tons of activities. Like, people are on their phones now. They're just sitting around eating, watching things on their phones, right? Back then, you didn't have that. You had, what can I occupy my Happy Meal with? Well, look at this. This is a puzzle, or this is a page of jokes, or this is a maze. They tried so hard to make the kid feel like a kid. Nowadays, I don't even think half the time they don't even come in Happy Meal boxes. I've gotten them in just paper bags,
Right.
and it's depressing.
It's just not the same. And even Burger King, they had some cool toys back in the day. They had like I don't know if you remember, like they put out Simpsons, these like Simpsons figures that you could collect for. It looked just like the show. They had some Disney licenses actually at Burger King. They had like the Lion King toys, they had the Aladdin toys. So for a while, it was kind of back and forth, McDonald's and Burger King fighting
Yeah.
over cool licenses.
Well, and the cool thing is Burger King stepped their game up, because what they did was they introduced a thing called the Burger King Kids Club.
Right.
It was a club that you could basically join, and they would have toys inside, but they were all specific characters, and they would
Right.
re-release them with activity books and a little thing of crayons. Like, they really stepped their game up, and that was huge. I remember, just watching commercials and seeing that logo for the Burger King Kids Club, and I knew that it was something special when I saw it. It was just so cool that they marketed that way, and every character was different on there. If you remember, they had the jock, they had the cool guy, they had the nerdy dude, they had the dog, like they had the actual kid in a wheelchair. Like they just, everything that could possibly do, they put in there so you could relate to something.
And it made it exciting to go there to get something to eat,
Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's not about the food. It's about how cool is the box. Does it occupy me? Is the toy cool? That's all it is. They made you feel like a kid. And nowadays they just don't. I mean, Happy Meals I don't even see people getting Happy Meals anymore. You know what I mean? Because their regular food, like at Burger King and McDonald's, is like a couple bucks. So they'll, like it says, except for the Pokemon situation. See, that's another thing. You couldn't even have a kid getting a Pokemon card, because scalpers were going in and buying literally every Pokemon card they had with the whole Pokemon debacle. So it was just, sorry, you guys there?
Yeah. So like for a game like Mario 3 too, for them to have the toys to go along with it, like it was such a big game at the time. People forget how big it was. Then you
Yeah.
had Wizard hyping it up. Sorry, I was trying to mute this train coming by, but there's no way around it.
Oh, you're
Um,
fine.
so
Just
yeah, like now I'm losing my whole train of thought. But the Super Mario 3 toys, like for them to coincide with that game release
I
and for
mean,
like
just perfect timing. Just perfect timing, perfect marketing. And there was a commercial that came on way back in the day for Mario 3, and it was literally everybody chanting Mario. And
yeah,
it zoomed out, and it was the world, but it was actually Mario's nose, and it zoomed.
right.
It just emphasized how huge, Mario was. It was literally the number one thing. I remember people like doing interviews, and they were like, "Who's this?" And the little kids would be like, "That's Mario," and they would show like a current president or even somebody on TV, and they were like, "Well, I don't know who that is." Like everybody knew Mario. A 90-year-old lady knew Mario. A 5-year-old kid knew Mario. It was just Mario 3 was a benchmark, and God, they marketed it perfectly. Like it was genius. I don't know how many of these things they sold, but I mean, they had to be millions.
It's kind of sad in a way, like kids these days do they don't have the icons like we did.
Oh,
And
definitely. I mean, I can't think of one that stunts, stood the test of time.
we're just kind of reissuing all our icons, and we're still loving the same icons. Like He-Man is back, and
Yeah,
Turtles always come in and out of fashion, but they always come back, right? But
yeah.
like we're not inventing new icons. That's sad.
No,
Why?
because here's the crazy thing. All these people that are making these toys now, like with the He-Man, with the Transformers, they're like, kids nowadays don't care about toys.
Right. They
They
want to
care
play on
about
the tablet.
iPads. They care
Want to
about
play on the tablet.
phones. The only audience, they're sitting there thinking like, what about all these kids in the 80s? They would love to have this shit.
Yeah.
So they literally market that stuff for us. I mean, I'm not kidding. Like when you see He-Man and Transformers, you think that's for little Timmy who just turned 6? They no. They're marketing the exact same figures, Grimlock, all these exact same figures for kids that are now in their 30s and 40s, because nothing beats the 80s generation of toys. Nothing. It's by far the best.
Well, we had to use something in the '80s called our imagination, and
Yeah.
when we played with these toys, we
Yes.
had to invent, the fun in our mind. Like they didn't just put it into a game on a tablet for us. We had to use our imagination when we played 8-bit and 16-bit games
Oh,
because
definitely. Yep.
they could
Oh,
only do so much with the graphics.
yeah. There was times where I would play games, and I would literally play GI Joes and translate that into playing GI Joes. So if it was a game about whatever exploration or guerrilla warfare, I would play GI Joes and play that way that I experienced in the game. And a kid now would be like, well, that's I could be like, well, there's a building that you go in, and it's just there's nothing there when you're sitting there holding a toy, and my son would be like, well, there's nothing there. And I'm like, that's exactly it. The imagination isn't there. In my head, I just walked in.
Right.
I'm in the complex. I'm in the lobby now. Like the imagination isn't there. It's gone. And I think tablets have a lot to do with it. Accessibility, phones. Um, I don't know. Something is maybe I sound like an old man, but just the imagination is gone.
Right.
The commercials from the 80s and 90s are better. I mean, I'm sure there's people that are like older and say, well, the 60s was the best. Because I used to hear that when I was a kid, like, well, back in my day, this stuff was better. And it's like, maybe it was, but and that's how I feel now. There's nothing better than 80s toys, 80s cartoons, early 90s toys, and early 90s cartoons. Nothing will beat it.
Well, I think what happened too was a couple of things lined up that really propelled toys. Uh, One was the malls. The malls burst.
Yes.
The malls exploded in the '80s. The Everybody was hanging out at the mall. Kids in high school, middle school, everybody that was the hangout. That was the place to be. The arcades, right? The toy
Oh yeah.
stores
Arcades. And
to
what's
buy.
wild is they came back. Arcades came back in the 90s, but in the 80s, they were bigger than they were in the 90s, which I was younger then. Like the early 80s, 82, 83, they were enormous. And
Right.
I can imagine how amazing that was to go to one location, see all your friends, walk in with $2, 8 quarters, and play as long as you could, and that experience can't be recaptured now. Like, I mean, malls are falling apart. Our mall, there's hardly anything in it, and there's no arcade. So it's like I don't get it. It's like something back then just worked better, and
And when
it's
it's an
unfortunate.
arcade, it sucks. It's those bullshit like
Like
when
train
not
games, yeah,
iPod.
like
It's those bullshit like dance games.
yeah,
Like it's like nonsense.
yeah. I
Nonsense.
mean, just imagine walking into like an arcade nowadays, and they have a couple of them, but they're specifically, you know, in business for that feeling. You know what I mean? Where they have the Turtles, they had the Simpsons. They have all these awesome games, the X-Men for, the X-Men 6 player even. Like they're specifically in business for people that are in their 30s and 40s who remember this stuff. So, but you can't find that anywhere else. You have to go to special locations to relive that feeling. And that's what sucks.
And I would love to see this would be an interesting focus group, right? You take a toy store and you take one wall of the toy store, right? You fill one side of the wall with 80s toys, new and sealed on the wall, and
Hmm.
you put brand new toys that are toy lines that are big today
Yeah.
sealed on the wall, and let kids gravitate to where they want to go. And I bet you much more will think that Turtles and He-Man and Ghostbusters are way cooler than the shit they're putting out these days.
Yes, definitely. And they looked like toys.
Yeah.
Like nowadays, I see stuff that they put out, and it's like, is this a toy? Can I handle this? Like something. The colors aren't bright. That's the whole thing with the toy. Like back in the '80s was, hey, how can we market this perfectly? How can we get the kid to want this toy over this toy? And it was the packaging. It was the colors they used. I mean, everybody's going to see a bright Turtles logo
When
in
they
that
gave
bright.
when they gave you an individual comic with every He-Man toy, that's
Yes.
unbelievable that they did the art for a different comic every character.
Yeah, that's insane. And just
Insane
think
attention to detail.
somebody's work, somebody put that in there. Like somebody came up and said, "Hey, we want you to make an individual comic for each character." And he's just sitting there like, "You think this is going to work?" Like in your mind, you wasn't sure at the time, but just think if that one little comic wasn't in there, the experience wouldn't been half as cool as it
Yeah.
was because he put so much time into that individual character. Just like the file cards with GI Joes. I haven't talked a ton about them on my channel. I have, but I'm a huge GI Joe collector, and that's my favorite line ever. And you know, they literally wrote file card after file card, every single one of them different, and made an actual personality for every single figure. Just think how much time went into that. But there's
Yeah.
people who collect GI Joes now, and they can recite those file cards to me, and it means something when they say, "Hey, this is this dude's real name." Or this is his where he's from. Like it would blow your mind. There's some fans out there that are just, but they appreciate that little bitty added tidbit that they put on each card back with the file cards.
And now we buy a video game new for $60 and they don't even put a fucking manual in it.
Oh yeah, it's in there, but you got to go online.
Right.
You got to get online and look up a damn manual like that. It infuriates me. I mean, just how imagine how cool it was back in the day, to buy Mario 3 and look at that fantastic color manual
All
with
the
just,
characters, right. I used to
yeah, like
that.
everything you needed to do. Like I remember my cousin getting a Link to the Past, and we just looked at that instruction manual. I mean, it's thick as hell, and everything is in there, the entire story, every character, the items. They tried so hard, and it's like, well, Nintendo does a little bit, but it's just not the same. Like that's why I feel if they re-released some of these old games with like retro packaging, they would
Yeah.
sell like hotcakes. Make it to where they look different from the vintage original stuff, but make it with that in mind, and they would sell insane because if they released the GBA NES edition and it sold great, and all the games sold great. So like people love the NES Classic. People love that old look. They'll buy it.
And like, there's some companies though, like Rockstar, they get the packaging. When you buy GTA 5, they give you a
yeah,
poster, the map, or
yeah.
whatever, everything.
Well,
They give you cool packaging, but most of the other companies don't.
yeah, and anything, um, one some of the things that do, especially on the Switch, is indie games. They'll actually take the time to put a color manual in there and really make it cool. Put a couple tattoos, maybe a couple stickers, something that makes it unique to that copy. And I love that. That's why the indie titles on the Switch are fantastic. Like
Yep.
there was a flashback 25th, or I think it's the 25th edition or 25 year, and it was just packed full of concept art, just really cool stuff that really made you want that. Like the Switch is killing it with that type of stuff, and all those indie companies are doing that stuff. But other than them, that's it. Like you don't see no, Gears of War coming with the full huge instruction booklet.
On these guys now, that A&E is doing them, and Vice
Yeah,
has their Dark Side of the Ring. But the
yeah,
ones A&E's been doing are great. They put out one on Stone Cold, Ultimate Warrior,
yeah.
Macho Man. Why do you think kind of wrestling is having this resurgence right now?
Man, I think it's the new wrestling is I've watched some of it, and it just doesn't hold a candle to the
Right,
late 80s and early 90s. And some people even say the 90s was kind of whack for a little bit,
right.
because with all the gimmicks. But
Reality
the
TV
but the
style.
yeah, but with the late 80s, just the characters now I can't relate. I could relate to, yeah, Jerry Lawler or Ric Flair. Like Jerry Lawler isn't from here, but there was a Coliseum that he in town that he wrestled a ton here. He was huge here. So, just seeing him and seeing Flair, seeing these larger than life characters are just, it's cooler to see Hulk Hogan. It's cooler to see Ultimate Warrior running down the ring. When I was a kid, I saw Ultimate Warrior run down the ring. I didn't think, hey, this guy's is a piece of crap. Like
Yeah,
I didn't think that, I didn't think, hey, this guy's manipulative and a bad wrestler. I thought, hey, this dude's running down the ring. He's gonna do two moves and kick this dude's ass. Like
right.
that's all I cared about. That's I don't have that feeling anymore. Braun Strowman can walk down the ring, and I'm just like, oh, this guy sucks. Like this, it's Braun Strowman. You know what I mean? Like I don't have that feeling.
And the people that say wrestling's fake, and the people that don't get it, and the people that think wrestling sucks. Here's the thing: these dudes risked their life arguably more than almost any other athlete does. Maybe aside from football. Maybe football is the only one because these guys like almost broke their fucking neck every fucking match.
Oh,
These
without
guys
a doubt.
broke bones. These guys,
Yeah,
look how many of them are dead. If you don't think that these wrestlers put their fucking ass on the line, then go look how many are dead. And
yeah.
then maybe somebody would say, well, that's more about the steroid use, but no, it's about the injuries they sustained. That
Oh,
these guys
definitely.
heart, that these guys' hearts went out at like 50 years old because they literally put their life on the line to wrestle. And guess what? They weren't paid as good as a lot of the other professional athletes.
Oh, without a
So
doubt, not. Yeah.
very underpaid. And if they made any money, it wasn't off Vince, it was off their merchandising.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing is like when you went to the WWF or even now, like man, I don't know if it's in contracts you signed, but that he owns all intellectual property. Like you can make some money off of it, but he owns the name. So anything you do, like The Rock, he gets a cut of it. It doesn't matter what it is. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. I mean, it's something that is part of it. But back then, like I didn't think about that. I didn't think of like all these guys putting their life on the line. I was just like, man, this is incredible. Like when I was watching Jeff Hardy when I was a teenager, I was like, this dude's doing insane stuff. You didn't think, well, if he just has one slip up, this swanton bomb can break his neck.
Yeah.
It is scripted. It is, there's the conclusions are predetermined unless something crazy happens. But
Well, it's
there's some,
dangerous as hell.
oh, without a
Scripted,
doubt.
but
I mean,
dangerous as hell.
oh, without a doubt. I'm a huge wrestling fan, and people say that all the time. Like, well, it's scripted. Like, yeah, it is. But you think you could take a power bomb? Like, do you know how to land one? You know how to take it and land correctly? Like, you
Right.
better hope that guy has, your life in his hands and he knows what he's doing. So it's incredible. I love wrestling. It's so hard to talk about on the channel because WWE literally copyrights everything. You can't put a clip up. All those clips I have they're all copyrighted. I'll have to change them eventually if I ever get monetized because they own everything. So the only thing you can really do is talk about it and show like pictures. And
Right.
even then, I think it has to be like half screen because they own all those properties and
That's why
every
I haven't been able to do a tribute compilation either for the same reason.
yeah, they're just I want to talk about it more and I can sit there and talk all day, but I can't show anything. And there's just with old school wrestling like that, there's some things that need to be seen, like the mega powers. You
Yeah.
just have to show the mega powers on how incredible they were when they were together. How awesome the Ultimate Warrior was. How awesome Mr. Perfect was, like in-ring technician. How awesome Bret Hart was. You can't just say it. You have to show, look how safe this dude is. Look how he controls the ring. You know, look at his demeanor. He took it so serious, and that's
You talk about in the future on your channel.
well, I'm definitely going to be talking about wrestling, so I'm going to do some stuff with that. I'm a huge GI Joe fan, and I'm actually trying to get every figure released from the original vintage line. But I'm trying to stop at 90 just because everything goes neon after that, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I was more of a fan of the earlier figures.
I think
So
most G.I. Joe fans are too.
yeah, they are the actual old heads. I mean, some of them don't go past 87. They're like 85, 84 to 87 is the prime. Uh, but I like my favorite figure of all time is from 1990. So I was like, you know what, I'll go through 1990, and it's a daunting task, and I haven't shown that, but I'll definitely be showing every figure that was released each year through video
Well,
and let everybody see.
on that topic, let me ask you this because I don't know the character's name as well at all. But I like the dude with the boxer and the dude with the croc.
Yeah,
Croc.
so they got Big Boa, and he was
Okay.
the boxer, and then they had Croc Master.
And those were not the earliest figures. Those were a little bit later, right?
Yes, those are from like 87, so 87 and on. But those figures were incredibly popular. Every Cobra figure has a huge following, and there's a ton of people who like them because for some reason they army build them. Like there's people who army build Crocmaster, and they just have a ton of them. Anything with a mask, they actually army build a lot, and even some without a mask. But like Big Boa is a huge army builder. The Bat is an incredibly hard.
And Destro, the original
Destro,
Chrome
huge.
head Destro. Oh my
Yeah, the
god,
original. Yep, the
so
original.
so damn cool.
Yeah, and was a very early character, but he was unique looking, so he stuck out. And he's pricey now. I mean, any G.I. Joe figure is pretty pricey if it's original with the original weapons. I mean, some of them weapons,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, over $100 for a gun, $150 for a staff for Sergeant Slaughter. I mean, there's
Oh
some of
yeah.
this stuff is crazy. So
That's why sometimes when you're a collector, you just got to go loose and you got to go no weapons. Sometimes you got to cut those corners. Sometimes as a collector, you know.
yeah, and that's what's taken me so long is because I'm trying to get everything original. I
Yeah.
I, I won't put a repro weapon in because they make those
Oh
too.
yeah.
And I mean, some of these things are just pricey, so it takes a while. But I try to do my research and make sure I'm getting the right things and for the right price. So it's taken a while, but I'm actually down to about 30 figures that I need
Oh great.
out of the
And it's like
400 or so.
your NES collection though. Maybe you don't want to cross that finish line.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's just one of those things. I don't know if that's like a phobia or what, but I get into something, and I just don't want to complete it because I don't know what I'll do next. Like my video game collection, I collect for Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, GameCube, but I don't show any of those things usually. But all those, the only thing I own out of those is things I actually played or actually had an interaction with. But the NES, I'm trying to get the license set, but
Right.
there's way more memories in my Super Nintendo games than there are my NES games. And that's
Right.
just because of nostalgia and that whole feeling. Nostalgia is incredibly hard to experience and not want to get everything for. It's like a drug to some people, and there's nothing better than just thinking about something you used to have and like, you know what, let me look that up. Maybe it's
It,
affordable. And,
it's more than
anything with
just
the
the
games.
items. It's more than just the items. It's where you were in your life. It's the people involved. It's memories you have with your parents too, buying them. It's memories you have with, like, for me, it was my grandmother would take me to the KB toy store. So
Yeah.
it's not the stuff. It's
Yes.
the memories.
And that's what my whole channel is. It's just Remnant. That's why I call it that, is because
Yeah.
anything on my channel is, I have a memory of it. I have a story about it. There's a reason I have it in my collection, and that's way more important than having every NES game. Like, I've debated. I got a couple of videos coming out, and one of them is, are you a collector, or you play your games, or are you just a collector? And
Right.
that's something people battle with. So I definitely address that, and it's like I would get rid of my NES games before my 30 boxed Super Nintendo games, just because of the actual memories and the nostalgia I have for that.
Right. Well, listen, Sean, it's been a blast talking to you, man. We hit a lot of subjects tonight. Your channel is great. I hope that we've been introduced to a lot of cool viewers on your end. I hope we've been able to introduce a lot of our viewers to your channel. Um, and don't be a stranger, man. We're gonna continue to keep watching yours. Stop by ours anytime. If you have any, we'll be talking in DM later on, and I'll see if you got any other friends that you think that you'd want to vouch for being on the show, because we like to put our ears out and find who inspires people that we've had on the show that we pick or we find out. We want to know who inspires them. So you might have some people that you want us to reach out to.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
it's all about spotlighting worthy channels that put the effort in, that make great content, and meet new people. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate you guys having me on, and I definitely have some people, you guys, and that's what's great about your channel is you showcase people with thousands of subs down to a couple hundred or even less than 100. So
Right.
there's no favoritism there. We're all a community of
Have to.
retro.
We just have to like the content. That's all it is. And
Yeah, and that's
got to
great.
be a good. It's got to be a good person, not a negative person. There's got to be, you know, a nice person behind it too. That's what we like to feature. It could be somebody with a really big channel, but if they're not a nice person, then we might not want to have them on. So that's
Yeah,
that's how we gauge it.
yeah, and that's great. I'm glad you guys do this, and it's cool because you guys get to see new channels, and then all the viewers who watch you and their fans come over, and your fans go over to their channel. It's just the retro gaming community is so vast on YouTube, but the small channels, I mean, nothing against the big ones, but it feels like after you get so big, you're not really doing a lot of your own stuff. You're doing what
Yeah.
gets you views, and you're paying editors, and you're not, is the passion there?
Detached.
I'm
You're
sure it
detached.
is. Yeah, you kind of just it's actually a job for you at that point, and I don't, that's one of those things that I fight with. I'm glad I can just make what I want. Like, my videos might not get a ton of views, but that game might mean a ton to me. I made a video about Pit Fighter, and it got hardly any views, but that game, I played that game all the time. I have insane memories with that game. So I made a
Right.
video about it. But if I had 100,000 subs, I might be worried about putting that out because it wouldn't get shit.
Very true. Very true.
So
I love the small YouTubers.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like, the passion's still there. I mean,
The
you look at
direct
their
connect.
videos.
You got the direct connection with your viewers because it's still just enough people that you can keep up with everybody that watches.
Yeah, and like, I've had a ton of help. Like, a couple channels that have a couple thousand subs have definitely helped me out. But I've became friends with them. Like, if I went out and seen them, I wouldn't feel any different. I wouldn't be like, well, I can't hang with this guy because he has a couple thousand. Like, he's him or her, they're down to earth, and they're there just because they have the same passion as you for toys and video games. It doesn't feel weird. But
Right.
I've been in the presence of big channels like Matt Patton, and Boogie, and these million subscriber channels, and it's something about them. Like most of them, you can't go up to. They usually have
Right.
a line that's 4 hours long, or what. I mean, it's insane. So I'm glad to just go to conventions, and one of the coolest experiences I ever had was when I met Melvor from the Game Chasers, and he wasn't with them. He was just standing there, and he just started talking to me as I was looking through games, and we sat there and talked for about 5 minutes, and it was like he could have just been somebody at that convention, and I would have never thought anything about it. I didn't say,
Right.
"Hey, I'm a fan." I just said, "So, what are you looking for today?" And he just said, "Oh, I'm just checking it out. I'm looking for this, and hopefully you find." He was super, super nice, and I met some that were pretty rude. So it's just,
Right.
We had
you
we
know,
had we had Tim on uh when we first
yeah, I've
started.
seen that. Yeah,
Tim,
10.
yeah, Jay's brother.
He was he
Yeah,
was he was cool as hell.
yeah. I met them, and they're really nice. I met him at Retropalooza, so he was kind of like in a hurry, but he was super nice. Took a picture with us, and but just something about the small channels. Like I haven't since I've had the channel, I haven't actually went to a convention because of COVID. So nobody's, I've never got to see anybody from these small channels, but I'm going to a couple this year, like Midwest Gaming Classic and the Southeast Game Exchange. So
Uh,
hopefully I'll
uh,
see some
Dude,
people there that run these.
I'm trying to go to the Southeast Game Exchange.
Yeah, see, I've never been, and that's where NES Addict. It's like his hometown. And I was like, dude,
Oh,
I'd love to like see you and hang out at the arcade and just get some food and talk games.
hell
Right.
yeah. I want to either go there or Too Many Games.
I've never been to too many games just because it's like 15 hours.
Yeah, that's
Retropalooza is like 12 for me, so that's pushing it. And I've went 2 or 3 years of that, but it's on the same day as Midwest is this year, so I kind of have to choose. And 8 hours is better than 13. So,
I'm
but Midwest
I'm
Gaming Classic is incredible if you've never been.
I'm Western Pennsylvania, so like too
Yeah,
many too
so you
many
got
games or the Southeast Game Exchange is like the same amount of travel time for me.
yeah. And I heard, Too Many Games is good, and I heard the Portland PGR, the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. I never been to that one either. And I heard that's like where like AVGN is from, around that area. So he
Yeah, and they're
usually
all
goes to
starting
that.
to open up again, which is good. Finally,
Yes.
Oh,
things are
shoot.
starting to turn
I was
around.
so bummed last year because I had them all planned out and they all got canceled. And so, like I
Yeah.
said, since I've had the channel, I haven't been able to go to any of these. It'd be cool just to, like, in the comment section, somebody will just say like, "I appreciate you making this video," or "Man, it's cool, getting home from work and seeing your video pop up." Like those are the comments that you love.
Right.
So I'm
Uh,
glad that I can give somebody some entertainment.
Well, Sean, thanks again for doing the show. We're probably going to go from the interview only back to general. Feel free to hang out and chat. If I know we've been going like almost 2 hours here, so you probably want a break, but feel free to like hang out and chat. And
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to send you a link when the interview is uploaded in its own video. And
Okay.
yeah, man, don't be a stranger. Want to keep seeing you around.
Definitely, man. I thank you guys for having me, and I'm glad that I got the opportunity. So until next time, we can chat again and have some fun.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate you.
Heck yeah,
Thanks,
man.
fellas.
Thanks.
No,
All right.
definitely. Thank you.